Today on U.S. Farm Report. It's a new year, surely we'll get a farm bill in 2014, right? A serious train derailment in North Dakota puts the spotlight on oil transportation. And our market analysts dissect the holiday freefall in grain prices.
U.S. Farm Report, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the one you depend on, the one that lasts.
Hello, and welcome to U.S. Farm Report. I'm John Phipps. Our local school system decided to maximize the Christmas vacation, so in my area, there are parents ready to get their kids to school by dog sled if necessary after over 3 weeks of bouncing off the walls at home. Strangely enough, Jan and I had no problem holding up in the house and experiencing the weather by remote sensors. It could be the winter of our discontent, however, if we spend too much time looking back at what we realized at the time was an historically profitable period for grain producers. In time, we'll adjust to new economic conditions, but the nostalgia for 2013 is already beginning. Tyne Morgan is here with our headlines.
Thanks, John, and hello, everyone. Congress gets back to work Monday, and under the new extension, legislators have until the end of the month to either come up with a new farm bill or agree to an extension. The committee leaders have been tight-lipped on what their initial farm bill agreement looks like. American Soybean Association and other groups have said it includes $8 billion in cuts to SNAP benefits, formerly known as food stamps. Pro-Farmer Washington consultant Jim Wiesmeyer says that number will be slightly higher. He thinks $8.8 billion. Another controversial item on the line is changes to federal crop insurance. Once the leaders reveal their farm bill agreement, it still needs approval from the broader committee. Then it's on to both the full Senate and the House. Wiesmeyer is optimistic we'll see a new farm bill by mid-January. While farmers said goodbye to high Section 179 levels and bonus depreciation as of January 1st, new health care laws went into effect. Farm CPA Paul Neefer says there are still many unknowns when it comes to the new law and tax implications.
The employer can deduct the health care premiums right now, whether they're under 50 employees or over. The problem is the employee may have to report it as taxable income or as a wage. That's the key change right now, and that's where we're not quite sure what the rule is actually going to be.
A train carrying crude oil derailed in North Dakota earlier this week, and now it's raising even more questions about the safety of shipping crude via rail. The mile-long train derailed after colliding with another train. As you can see here, it created quite the explosion. It happened about 25 miles from Fargo, near a town called Castleton. Due to the shifting winds, residents of the town were forced to evacuate. Now, this isn't the first time a train has derailed carrying crude oil. Last year, a large explosion happened near Quebec. With the increase in flammable crude oil being shipped by rail, communities lining the railways are concerned about their safety.
The chance of a derailment is very slim, but if you do have a derailment, it's devastating to the community.
He says most small towns aren't prepared to handle a derailment. Emergency crews are lacking, and in remote locations, it could take hours for an adequate number of emergency personnel to respond. And these concerns are fueling the debate for the Keystone XL pipeline as a safer way to transport oil. Those are the headlines. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman joins us now with Crop Watch.
Thanks, Tyne. Snow has created quite the challenge this winter and left unfinished business from 2013. Greg Schooks of Torch Lake, Michigan sent us this picture. He says they were forced to call it quits December 28th with 100 acres left to harvest. The snow simply got too deep. And from row crops to cattle, herds are having to bear the frigid temperatures this week. Jerome Shetter snapped this photo. He says Thursday the high was -3 and the low -15. And to the south in Illinois, the fluctuating weather has been hard on the calves this winter. Temperatures late this week were around 15 degrees, but the wind chill made it feel like 0. Now, take a look at the latest drought monitor. You can see that we still have those pockets of very dry conditions from Nebraska to Texas, but we now have an exceptional drought area developed in west central Nevada, much of California, parts of Oregon and Idaho, also extremely dry. We'll have your forecast coming up in a few minutes.
When we come back, it's time to talk markets. Jim Bauer and Tommy Grisafi will join us in just 2 minutes.
U.S. Farm Report is brought to you by Stratego Yield Fungicide from Bayer, official fungicide of the Yield Bump. Stratego Yield, healthy fields, higher yields.
A man and his truck, and his son who would rather play computer games than go camping. And a valley, and a river, and the stars, and a new convert. The all-new Chevy Silverado, from one generation to the next, strong for all the roads ahead.
Great harvest.
Definitely. How do you help your crops produce to the fullest? Treat your seeds. Bayer seed treatments help prevent damage caused by pests during early plant development, leading to healthier stands and larger yields. And when it comes to seed treatments, there's only one name to remember.
Pancho Vitivo? Pancho Vitivo.
Get treated and get growing.
The secret to finding more buyers for your cattle is no longer a secret. CattleExchange.com is like no other site. It brings the greater ease of use, detailed information, and searchability found in sites like Cars.com and Autotrader.com to the cattle industry. Upload photos and video to attract more buyers and share greater detail in your listing. Cattle buyers and sellers are connecting in ways they never imagined. Go to www.cattle-exchange.com and discover the secret to better selling.
Why is B&W's turnover ball the best-selling gooseneck hitch in the country? Maybe it's the ingenious way it solves everyday problems. Or because it's time-tested and is rated to tow 30,000 pounds. Maybe it's because our lifetime warranty gives hard-working people peace of mind. Or maybe it's because folks love to own a hitch that's still 100% made in America. The Turnover Ball by B&W. Trusted.
Roundtable guest this week, Tommy Grisafi, Trade to Farm. We have Jim Bauer, Bauer Trading. Gentlemen, we're now in a new year, 2014. What is going to happen in 2014? Tommy, I'll start with you.
Well, we started with a bang, and I don't think producers like the way 2013 ended up. The last few trading days of the year, we sold off pretty hard, and maybe being optimistic, thinking 14 would be different. The way 14 started off, Al, was that everything that was good last year started off bad. The stock market went up forever last year. It had 2 down days already. And the grains, you know, your corn right out of the gate, beginning of the year, started up 5 cents, and beans sold off. So everything that was good last year, like beans, sold off. The things that were the big shorts, like wheat and corn, had a short covering rally. That'll play out for a few days, and then we'll go back to business as normal, which is probably not going to make anyone happy.
Well, yeah, it doesn't sound like Jim. What do you think, Jim? It kind of summed up what has happened last
Starting
few
off
weeks.
2014, of course, we start off with the crop report, and you and I have talked for years about the January crop report. I mean, I just dread the thing. It approaches demand factors, it approaches production factors, it approaches acreage factors, and it all's got to blend together in what the trade perceives as opposed to what the USDA perceives. And of course, that's historically the last 2 years been a situation where we have high volatility, a lot of uncertainty going into it. Hopefully this year it'll be much calmer, and we can go into the new year, you know, with a kind of a standard set of data that we can make good decisions for the rest of the year.
Tommy, you're primarily a speculator. Do you pay attention to those crop reports? I guess you have to, because everybody does. That's what drives the market, right?
The dynamics have changed. You know, we're open. And so it makes it challenging for me as a trader, and it makes it challenging for Jim. If Jim's sitting there, to his defense, if he has hundreds of customers and they want to do something on the crop report, at 11 o'clock in 1 second, we've moved 25 seconds. Jim's not going to be able to take 100 calls and go buy, sell, 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 buy. You have to have your orders in there and deal with what you get. And then there's high-frequency trading computers in there. So I have that same nervousness, and I respect Jim as much as anyone in the industry. And when someone like Jim's nervous, I got to be nervous. But I have the benefit, Al, of going into the report flat. The American farmer usually, just in general, they grow grain, they're long. Yeah. So I think
you're long corn, you might be long a little bit from 13, you're long a bunch from 14, and most guys have nothing sold for 15. So no matter what the producer thinks, they're going in the report long, unless they obviously have cows or pigs. Maybe they're short bought grain and they could, buy corn down 25 cents. That would make them happy. But the majority of the crowd's rooting for a higher push in the prices on these reports, and that may not be the way, but that's what people are hoping for.
Well, the market has to look at the reports, and they trade the reports, and whether or not they're correct or not, and I know there's a lot of argument whether or not they're going to be correct and that sort of thing.
Well, one of the things, Al, for 2014, my firm, we're going to make a change. And I've felt this for several years now, but I think what's happened in the industry, we're getting information overload, particularly for the producers. They have magazines, they have radio, they have TV, they have internet, they have Twitter, they have grain merchandising seminars, on and on and on. I think what needs to happen in 2014, and I know Bauer Trading is going to make that change, we're going to focus less on the amount of information that we get, which is okay, but when we come to make the decision, we're going to narrow it down so we have fewer and fewer opinions in order to make that decision correctly. In other words, let's get the data down to the point where we can make a trade, we can make a sale, we can make the correct decision. But I just feel that there's been so many people shove so much information at these producers, I think they're confused. So, and they miss opportunities that should have been there. And I'm including myself in that if you get too much information overload. So I think that's going to be a key factor with us. The other thing is, as you know, Bauer Trading is in a program of always looking to underwrite the options rather than buying them or purchasing them. We do have to have a lot of risk management with the clients, but certainly from a hedge standpoint for the out-of-the-money calls, for trades that you're not going to get maybe rich overnight, but you can have a possibility of increased revenue. I think my staff and I, we're going to work very, very diligently with us producers, narrowing those trades down on underwritten options as long as the customer understands the risk.
I think that's something, go ahead.
I think Jim's right, and even with that, if you work with Jim Bauer and he does a great job and you buy the best crop insurance and you're happy with your insurance guy, you're happy with your futures guy, you still might be looking at a loss. If a producer thinks I'm working with the best guy in the whole world, I'm going to make money next year, if your inputs are higher than the cost of production, you're working with negative numbers. So maybe just losing a little next year is a good goal.
We'll be back with more U.S. Farm Report in just a moment.
Javen Smith grows continuous corn in southwest Iowa. He says growing corn on corn presents some unique challenges.
Some guys will choose fungicides on specific hybrids. We run fungicides over every hybrid on continuous corn. It's just part of our management strategy. Looking at what we're doing today versus what we were doing 5 years ago, I would say, we're using more of the later chemistries and focusing more on plant health and plant disease on our continuous corn. We chose Stratego Yield over our competitors. I guess myself, I just feel that it is the latest chemistry with the Stranobles. It's the newest on the market, and I guess with prices where they're at, we want to run the Cadillac program. I would say on a weighted average on using Stratego Yield fungicide applications, we are seeing anywhere from 4 to 15 bushel increases on the fungicide treatments.
It's a competitive world out there. Dramatic changes are happening in agriculture. Land values are creeping higher. The market is nipping at your tail. Stay ahead of the pack by attending the Top Producer Seminar in downtown Chicago, where you'll learn from the nation's best minds in agribusiness and network with hundreds of like-minded large acre producers. Learn more at topproducerseminar.com.
Clear! There's a better way to jumpstart your soil back to health. Apply Endzone to protect and increase nitrogen efficiency without killing bacteria. Apply Prevent to increase phosphorus availability and reduce fixation. Better yet, use them both to get more from your fertilizer investment and see higher potential yields. Ag Explorer, your prescription for healthy soil.
Tommy Gasafi, Jim Bauer. We were talking about things, and we're talking. And Tommy would make a good comment about prices and what the farmers always involved and whatnot. And you were just going to ask what if land prices went.
I said, Tommy, you just dropped the value of land values of $2,000 an acre on that statement. So hopefully they're not listening to us too carefully.
What are land values going to do, though? I mean, actually, we seem to be in kind of a downtrend in terms of prices at this point in time. Land value is going to go down.
Well, I think based upon current price of grain, obviously land prices are probably extended out probably at their upper level for at least for a while. I mentioned on a program before, though, that one thing about the farm ranch land out west, you know, I've been working with those producers out there, particularly the cow-calf operator, to protect the equity in the cows, because the cow equity has built up the equity in the ranch.
That's true.
So I hear very few producers out there saying, well, I need to protect this big increase in cow prices that we've had over the last 3 or 4 years. So we're doing some strategies to protect that. Maybe cattle prices are going to go higher, but I don't want to let that equity, just like farm equity, I don't want to let that equity that the cow herd's been built up get away from us.
Well, if you're a grain farmer, though, you got to be concerned about renting the land, too, and rent prices have been pretty high.
Yeah. I've heard some horror stories the last few months of people being handed back farms. Hey, we're in a 3-year lease, $400 an acre. If someone hands it back to you, that lease, you know, you're not going to fight in court too long. You're going to have to go farm that ground next year. I've also heard horror stories of hedge accounts that were supposed to be hedging who ended up long grain because either the producer or the expert says, hey, I think we're going to bounce. And so you got to understand in this environment that it's been a long time since we've had a true bear market. One point I'll bring, because I trade the other markets, gold and silver.
Right.
One of the worst performing stocks last year was Newport Mining. So to your point about land, silver's at $18 an ounce. 3 years ago, it was at $50 an ounce.
Yeah.
When the price of the commodity comes down, Newport Mining lost over 40% last year. I can't imagine land will keep being bid up in a price environment where we're looking at $50 to $100 negative margins or just break evens. Last thing, right before I came here, I looked at all the prices of corn at the Board of Trade. And there was no corn higher than $4.75, all the way out to D17. So
wow.
Say Jim and I don't know what we're talking about, but you believe the prices at the Board of Trade. They're saying we're in a lower price structure for the next 4 years. How you're going to work with your insurance, with your futures, with your options, with Jim selling calls, whatever your plan is, plan on it being at a lower price structure.
That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, I would agree with what Tommy's saying. I think we've got to be careful here.
Yeah.
We've got to prepare ourselves for a tougher year. But there's always opportunity in the marketplace. Sooner or later, something always surfaces if you're careful and you watch. But I think 2014 is going to be characterized by a year where possibly the dollar is going to start doing better. I think the new money that's been entering the market the last several years on quantitative easing, I think that's going to lighten up. There may be some trade ideas and some speculative situations in markets that have had major corrections, like we've seen coffee come well off its high from a year ago.
Right.
There may be something in rice from an international standpoint. He mentioned gold. Gold, as he said, $1,900 a year ago, now down at $1,200. Yeah. Nobody's even thinking about it. I mean, these markets change. You got to be flexible. But it goes back to my point I said. There's a lot of information out there. We've got to deal with it, but we've got to bring this decision-making process down to the local level, to your trade, to your program that fits for you and nobody else.
To Jim Bauer's point, we all three agree that corn doesn't store as well as gold does. So at some point, these bushels are going to have to come to the market. They're not going on a shelf for 20 years.
One question now, and we only got about 20 seconds to do it. What country should we be looking at? We were looking at China, we look at India, look at Brazil, South America, that can affect the United States agriculture most in a short period of time. Any?
I focus on China as a trader, but they're our largest customer of the beans, and they have a lot of people and a lot of pigs. Jim?
Well, I have my sights from myself personally. I think Brazil is a country that, as you know, I've watched for years. Okay. I've tried to learn as much about that market as I possibly can. You've got the World Cup coming in there. You know, it's a situation where that country is going to try to grow itself, you know, through some difficulties. The middle class is starting to increase. So I'm focused on Brazil, and I think it's a country of the future.
We'll be back with Markets Now here on U.S. Farm Report.
Uh-oh, not again. The power went out. It's hard to see with that old weak flashlight. You need the old Brooklyn lantern, the vintage style lantern with new LED technology. Those ordinary flashlights just shine a narrow beam. They never work when you need them, but the old Brooklyn lantern has 9 ultra bright LED bulbs that shine for 100,000 hours. Just look at the difference. And the built-in dimmer switch adjusts from a low, gentle glow to a super bright light. Keep one in the house, and you're always ready for any emergency. It's guaranteed or your money back. Call and get your old Brooklyn lantern with LED technology now, just $12.99. Call right now and you can double your order. And call right now and find out about free shipping.
Call 1-800-210-5441 to get your old Brooklyn lantern. But hurry, we're giving away a special offer on a second lantern with today's orders. That's 1-800-210-5441.
Risk. It's the one constant farmers face each day. Price risk on unsold grain, production risk up until your crops or livestock are sold, and opportunity risk on sales. The correct decisions can erase debt, boost retirement accounts, and recharge your business. Now there's a resource available to increase your marketing knowledge and ease your decision-making process. Farm Journal's Marketing Education Series. This 4-chapter workbook and DVD series includes Assessing and Managing Risk, Become a Better Cash Marketer, Fundamentals of Hedging, and Advanced Marketing Strategies. Farm Journal's Marketing Education Series, featuring pro farmer editor Chip Flory, presents real-world marketing scenarios, so you'll learn the correct time to utilize each of your delivery contract options, the proper hedging strategies, and when doing nothing is okay. Order today at www.shopfarmjournal.com and take control of your risk management with Farm Journal's Marketing Education Series.
Markets Now is brought to you by DuPont Pioneer, helping you get the right product on the right acre. Science with service, delivering success.
Jim Bauer, Markets Now.
Well, Al, I think 2014 is going to be a year with some twists and turns in that we probably don't expect. Obviously, if you look at the pure data, and we'll have an update on this next crop report, which, as you and I have talked off air, is notorious for being off what the trade estimates are, but we'll see what it is. I think overall there'll be a couple opportunities out ahead for pricing, maybe a little bit better than they are now, but overall, if you look at the supply-demand tables from domestic as well as international, it looks like it could be a pretty tough year. But of course, during that time frame, there'll be some opportunities which we're going to have to try to take care of when they present themselves.
Tommy Gasafi, Markets Now.
Well, Al, I've heard a lot of producers say they're going to plant soybeans over corn. And talking about what you're doing first of the year, I could talk about losing weight, and if I don't go to the gym, Tommy's not going to lose any weight. So if you talk about growing soybeans and you take no action on it, and you see what happened the last 3 days, where November soybeans have broken out of their range where they've lost 40 cents, all of a sudden the numbers don't look as good versus the corn. So talking about planting soybeans and not doing a hedge, not doing an option, not knowing where your insurance level is, because we don't know that yet. And so without all these variables, it's just talk. So I'm starting to see a lot of this money, of potential money be made by, hey, it's better to grow beans, was just lost in the last week. And so it's going to be a challenge. And to Jim's point, things change. So don't listen to one thing you heard on this show and think that's what's going to happen the whole 2014. Crazy stuff happens. It does every year. It creates volatility. But in general, we look to be coming to a low volatility time period for the short term.
Do you really think volatility is going to go down quickly?
Yes, I would agree with Tommy.
So?
I think we're there now.
The biggest shock in 2014 might be what we didn't do. That we just go side to side to side and we just stay in a tight range, and that it was just slow.
We'll be back with more U.S. Farm Report in just a moment.
A man and his truck, and his son who would rather play computer games than go camping. and a valley, and a river, and the stars, and a new convert. The all-new Chevy Silverado, from one generation to the next, strong for all the roads ahead.
I live alone and rarely have visitors. So when I slipped and fell in the kitchen last month and couldn't get to a phone, I knew I was in trouble.
Help!
I could barely move.
Help!
I tried calling for help, but no one could hear me. As I lay there, I couldn't help but think of my kids and grandkids having to go on without me. I was terrified. It took 8 hours for my neighbor to find me. It could have been the end of me. That's when I knew I needed Life Alert. With just one press of this button, I'm connected to the Life Alert Center, where I can get the help I need, even when I cannot reach a phone. With Life Alert, I'm never alone.
Call 1-800-521-1902 for your free Life Alert brochure. That's 1-800-521-1902. Again, 1-800-521-1902. Call for your free Life Alert brochure at 1-800-521-1902 today.
With 2013 in the books, all eyes are on the horizon, scanning for what 2014 may bring. Like every other amateur prophet, I have a terrible track record, so I thought today I would share some things that I really meant to predict last January. First, electricity usage. Despite serious energy conservation legislation, the idea those would actually work seems to have caught us off guard. However, total U.S. electricity consumption has fallen 4 out of the last 5 years. This is a major problem for utility companies, as these trends show no signs of stopping. Much of the demand reduction is attributed to more efficient electrical devices, such as the oft-maligned new light bulbs. As of this year, we're done with old-fashioned tungsten bulbs. Although, if you just can't stand the change to CFLs or LEDs, a loophole allows sales of old bulbs as rough-use bulbs. The subsidy on wind turbines expired this year, and construction of wind farms will probably grind to a near halt. Christmas cards may be about over. The decline was spectacularly sharp in 2013, and coupled with recent stamp price increases, massive layoffs at card publishers can be expected. Finally, there could be a new top beef exporting nation this year, and you can win a lot of bar bets if you know the correct answer: India. Despite furor from many Hindus, demand from China is sending more beef, well, buffalo meat, out of that country. See, the future is not only stranger than we imagine, it's stranger than we can imagine. Let us know what you think. Send emails to mailbag@usfarmreport.com or call and leave us a voicemail. Coming up in our next half hour, beef producers eye the global market for growth. Stay with us. The second half of U.S. Farm Report is coming right up.
U.S. Farm Report is produced and distributed by Farm Journal Television.
Today on U.S. Farm Report, crop prices are down, will farmland follow? Maybe not, says one expert. CRP acres trickle back into production, but are they late to the party? And the nation's hog producers struggle with a major disease outbreak.
U.S. Farm Report, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the one you depend on, the one that lasts.
Hello, and welcome to U.S. Farm Report. I'm John Phipps. During the holidays, we all had reasons to ignore the markets, but even from the corner of our eye, we knew the trends weren't tidings of joy. What is most startling to me is to realize we just saw a 40% annual drop in the price of corn, and it's still above $4. Clearly, we have a cost problem, and my guess is this is going to be the target of farmer outrage. After all, it was less than a decade ago we dreamed of $4 corn. Price changes this drastic challenge our entire production chain, and those who can respond more rapidly could be the new winners. Let's get started with the headlines now on Tyne Morgan.
Thank you, John. Well, several big changes are in store for farmers in 2014, including lower net farm incomes. But one economist at the University of Illinois doesn't see farmland prices shifting that much. Gary Schnitke of the University of Illinois Extension says using current prices, his estimates show growing corn in northern Illinois last year posed an $81 per acre loss. That's compared to a net gain of $188 per acre in 2012 and $251 in 2011. Now, despite farmers looking at losses again in 2014, Schnitke doesn't think farmland values will crash like we saw in the 1980s.
And I think the fundamentals are completely different. If one tries to understand what happened in the 80s, the reasons we had both the run-up and the crash, and compare them to today, they're completely different stories. We've had much higher incomes that have supported higher land values, higher cash rents. Cash rents have increased and they're very sticky, but they haven't increased on a percentage basis as much as farmland values. So in a very broad brush sense, farmland markets are still fairly rational.
He says because of the low interest rates, farmland is still a good investment. While farmland prices may not be shifting, there is a move away from letting ground set in CRP. A new government report shows 1.6 million acres were removed from the Conservation Reserve Program last year. That's about the size of Delaware. The report cites Congress's cuts to the CRP budget plus higher grain prices as the reason for the shift. And just before the new year, the rapidly growing virus affecting the nation's swine herd hit a weekly record. This could impact feed demand going into 2014. The number of new porcine epidemic diarrhea virus cases hit a record of 185 cases in 1 week. That's according to the American Association of Swine Veterinarians for the week of December 15th. Now, the report originally showed 119 cases, but they upped the number by 66 in the following week's report. For the week of December 22nd, the number of new cases reached 116. The association didn't cite any new states with confirmed cases of the virus. These cases will hit this summer when the slaughter market is already tight. USDA says it will make its rule of allowing schools to serve larger portions of protein and whole grains permanent. The department made the commitment earlier in the school year and says it's just following up on that promise. The transition to healthier school lunches was announced last school year. After several complaints, USDA was forced to make a few changes to the rules. Allowing larger portion sizes is one of those adjustments. And John, another article out this week, Cheerios is going non-GMO.
Yeah, I'm starting to think we need a plan B for our hardline resistance to labeling, and I'll be talking about that next week a little bit.
So we'll get your stance on labeling next week.
Yeah, I think it's time to rethink what our strategy is going to be, especially in light of somebody like General Mills making this kind of decision.
Good tease. Leave us hanging.
Let's check in with meteorologist Mike Hoffman for the National Forecast.
Brutally cold air is coming into the northern portions of the Plain States as we speak. This is some of the coldest air we've seen in a few years, and it probably will break a few records across parts of the middle of the country. The good news, if there is any here, after this quick trough comes through, you'll notice it rotates quickly away. So a 2 or 3 day shot of very cold air, then it rotates up in eastern Canada, and we kind of go zonal for a while with the southern part of the jet getting involved a little bit. And that means later on this week and into next weekend, we are looking at a brief warm-up again. I still think the cold air comes back. It's overall a cold pattern just because of the very warm water that we're seeing south of Alaska. That continues to produce the ridge there in the trough in the east. But of course, Mother Nature does take a breather once in a while from the brutal cold that she is sending south early this week. Let's take a look at things then. Again, it is just going to be extremely cold, dangerously cold across the northern plains, and very cold for you folks in the south either. As well, I should say, with the cold front progressing through Florida and up and down the eastern seaboard on Monday. That'll still be causing some rain in the east coast areas, but from the central Appalachians through the Great Lakes, there'll be some snow showers through that area. High pressure dominating the middle of the country. On the other side of the stationary front, it'll be rather mild, even for this time of the year, with high pressure dominating as well. There's the jet stream on Monday, and again, basically just shooting straight southward into the northern Gulf of Mexico and then out into the Atlantic, just continuing to bring in the cold air. On Wednesday, then, we'll see that first dome of high pressure moving off to the east. So the coldest air is now along the eastern seaboard in the northeast. Still cold through the plains, but it's not going to be as cold as you start the week. And you'll notice the next storm system coming through the central Rockies, some decent snows there, rain down into parts of Texas with that system as well. And we kind of have that split flow going with the southern part of the jet stream kind of getting involved as well, trying to bring in some of that milder air. On Friday, then, that storm in the Rockies moves into the central Appalachians, snow in the Great Lakes, Indiana, northwestern Ohio, probably. It all depends on the track here. Pretty good dose of rain, though, up and down the eastern seaboard. Next weak system causing some mountain snows and rain along the coast as it comes into the northwest. And there you can see the jet stream continues to be kind of dipping southward, but that's more the southern jet by late in the week, so we're still talking milder temperatures. Next week, then, below normal temperatures once again come back southward into most of the central parts of the country. The southeast and southwest are above normal. Precipitation next week above normal in the east, and from the central plains back through the southwest below normal. 30-day outlook for temperatures, continuation of the temperatures we've been seeing this winter, below normal in most of the east, above normal southeast and southwest, and then above normal precipitation in the east and northwest, and below normal in the southwest. Really hasn't changed a whole lot.
The storms tend to be going to the east. We're not getting a huge snowpack on the northern plains, though, are we?
No, and when it's this cold, you typically don't. So they're going to have to hope for some snowstorms late in the winter season.
Or they're going to start a dry season next year. Thank you, Mike. Spirit of the Heartland is next.
U.S. Farm Report is brought to you by Ag Explorer. Nurse your soil back to health with the right prescription of N-Zone and Prevent.
Prosaro fungicide provides broad-spectrum disease control to help maximize yield and profit potential in wheat and barley by protecting crops from both scab and leaf diseases. Many growers across the country have maximized their yield and profit potential by using Prosaro. That includes North Dakota wheat grower Greg Messer.
You can actually see the difference from the distance of a field from a mile away, just in the color of the straw that Prosaro treats it. It's almost not only is it a cure, but it's like a preservative too.
Dwayne Riley from Ohio says he had seen some higher DON levels over the past few years, but has noticed the quality of his wheat increase since using Prosaro.
We have seen some yield response with Prosaro. We've really seen a response in the quality of the grain, and for someone that's doing wheat straw, the quality of the straw.
And Roger Gens from Michigan says that using Prosaro has helped him increase both the quantity and quality of his wheat.
Not only do we have a product that produces a lot of volume, but we also have a product that maybe can earn us a premium.
A man and his truck, and his son who would rather play computer games than go camping. And a valley, and a river, and the stars, and a new convert. The all-new Chevy Silverado, from one generation to the next, strong for all the roads ahead.
Great harvest.
Definitely. How do you help your crops produce to the fullest? Treat your seeds. Bayer seed treatments help prevent damage caused by pests during early plant development, leading to healthier stands and larger yields. And when it comes to seed treatments, there's only one name to remember.
Pancho Vitivo?
Pancho Vitivo. Get treated and get growing.
American ag leaders continue to look for new opportunities to market U.S. grain and oilseeds. One way to do that is through free trade agreements. The Colombia Free Trade Agreement is one that the United Soybean Board sees as encouraging a growing feed user. As Tyne Morgan shows us, with a booming population and meat consumption on the rise, Colombia's appetite for grain is growing.
Depending on who you talk to, it's between 9 to 11 million people. Yes, it's as big as New York City, has the same dynamism, and it's growing.
This bowl-shaped city is bursting at its seams. As more Colombians yearn for a better way of life, Bogota keeps packing the streets with more buildings, more people, and a growing appetite for more protein.
In 38% penetration, household penetration in 2009, and we went to 49% in 2012.
The growth hasn't come easy. Negative perception has been standing in the way.
People thought before that pork was dangerous or was unhealthy.
Our consumption numbers are very, very low. Colombia's got one of the lowest, ratios in terms of consumption per capita, around 5 kilos, which is close to, say, 10 pounds. That's very, very low.
But as quality assurance has been spreading through the industry and formal production practices have caught on, it's education that's the recipe for increased demand. These are some of the television ads the pork producers have been running, encouraging consumers to eat more pork. And it's worked. Consumption has almost doubled, and Maya expects that to continue to climb.
We have a new generation. We have people that think different about pork, and if there's a place where we have a place in a sector where we really have opportunities to grow, is pork business in Colombia.
The poultry producers have a hefty goal as well.
We have 234 eggs per person per year. These are very good figures, but to be honest, we want to have the same figure as the Mexicans do, making one Colombian eat at least 1 egg daily.
While the free trade agreement will help both poultry and pork producers buy quality, affordable feed, it's the imports of actual poultry products that's creating too much competition and hurting producers' bottom line.
Before, when we negotiated the free trade agreement back in 2002, the price of the breast was very high, was around $7.50, $8 per kilo, and the leg quarters were around 35 cents per kilo.
But as Americans' appetite and budget has changed, leg quarter prices have spiked, now around $1.20. At the same time, he says chicken breast prices have tumbled.
In the moment that they can enter into Colombia with zero tariff, they are a big threat for us. We have big concerns on that.
He hopes an improving U.S. economy will change these conditions. At the same time, increased production in Colombia will help producers take advantage of the free trade agreement and ship more of these products out.
Thanks, Stein. She visited Colombia as part of the United Soybean Board's See for Yourself trip. Our thanks to USB for inviting U.S. Farm Report along. Next week, we'll head back to Colombia to meet a retired glassmaker who escaped the city life and is now living the Colombian dream as a dairy farmer. Coming up next, if your New Year's resolution is to have a better memory, Baxter Black says you're not alone.
Miss any of today's show? Head to usfarmreport.com to watch the program online. U.S. Farm Report, the spirit of the countryside.
You see it everywhere nowadays. We call it the yield bump. It's a grower's way of saying you made a good decision. Because when you treat young corn with an early season application of Stratego Yield fungicide, you get stronger stalks, healthier fields, and even higher yields. So get a jump on your yield bump with Stratego Yield Early Season.
Hi, this is Mark Gold with Top Third Ag Marketing. I have just issued a free workbook on marketing in the top third. This book contains all the major principles from my marketing seminars. And Top Third wants you to try an option at our expense. Included in the book is a coupon good for up to $150 in premium, plus we'll pay the commission and fees. We want you to learn how options can help you become a better marketer. Call 877-TT-HEDGE or visit topthird.com for details.
I'm so glad we could help. Thousands of people contact General Steel each month for a pre-engineered steel building. These are business owners who need retail, manufacturing, office, and storage facilities. They're church leaders who need sanctuaries or gymnasiums. And they're people just like you who need RV storage, riding arenas, or airplane hangars. They all want the same thing: the advantages of owning, to build quickly and save money, quality backed by our 50-year structural warranty, And they all want to work with a name they know, General Steel. Some callers have shopped the internet and realized that for a purchase this important, it just doesn't make sense to take a risk. Many internet-based companies are nothing more than a website. You really don't know who you're working with. Call us today for the building you need and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. Thank you for calling General Steel. How may we help you today?
It's a new year, and as an annual tradition, many of us make New Year's resolutions. For some, it may be to do a better job of remembering people's names. For Baxter Black, travels can cause his memory to be a bit skewed. It's even caused a few mistaken identities.
There are some people that I envy. Well, maybe that's too strong. Maybe just covet their natural ability to recognize and remember horses. You may be one of those people who can look at a day-old colt one time and pick that sucker out of the string 12 years later. Well, I'm not. I wish I was. But in my travels, I'm often put on strange horses for a couple days on a trail ride or a long gather, and I make it a point to tie a bag tag in his mane. I know, it looks a little dudeish, but it beats waiting till everybody's caught their horses and mine is the only one that's left. At least I can remember people pretty well, but some folks are just the opposite. Is this the horse I think it is? You had him here last year? That rope, I remember, got tangled in his feet. He jumped just like a deer. He pulled the branding pot plumb down and hung up in the gate. Tore clean off the hinges. Why, it don't hang straight. I'm telling you, I know this horse. He threw you across the fence. The ground crew tried to find a hole and hide in self-defense. He bucked back through the cows and calves and tried to kill Joe's truck. I'd never seen a grill fall off. Old Joe was thunderstruck. He finally stopped to catch his wind. His hide was wringing wet. We tried to slip up next to him, as close as we could get, to try and grab a dragging rein was all that we could hope. But he nearly did a backflip and Jim Bob shook out a rope. I thought that net wire fence would hold, but I sure missed my guess. He climbed it like a Sherman tank and lit out towards the west. The whole corral was tore up bad. Well, we've fixed it back since then, but there's still bite marks on the gate inside the branding pen. You sure you wasn't here last year? Performed that tour de force? By gosh, old son, I think you're right. You wasn't even here. Ah, seem like I remember now. Slim rode him here last year. This is Baxter Black from out there.
Thanks, Baxter. You can check out his work online at baxterblack.com. When we come back, Tractor Tales and our Country Church Salute. Please stay with us.
Javen Smith grows continuous corn in southwest Iowa. He says growing corn on corn presents some unique challenges.
Some guys will choose fungicides on specific hybrids. We run fungicides over every hybrid on continuous corn. It's just part of our management strategy. You know, looking at what we're doing today versus what we were doing 5 years ago, I would say, you know, we're using more of the later chemistries and focusing more on plant health and plant disease on our continuous corn. We chose Stratego Yield over our competitors. I guess myself, I just feel that it is the latest chemistry with the Stranobles. It's the newest on the market, and I guess, you know, with prices where they're at, we want to run the Cadillac program. I would say on a weighted average on using Stratego Yield fungicide applications, we are seeing anywhere from 4 to 15 bushel increases on the fungicide treatments.
It's a competitive world out there. Dramatic changes are happening in agriculture. Land values are creeping higher. The market is nipping at your tail. Stay ahead of the pack by attending the Top Producer Seminar in downtown Chicago, where you'll learn from the nation's best minds in agribusiness and network with hundreds of like-minded large acre producers. Learn more at topproducerseminar.com.
What is your emergency? Need assistance at County Road 61 and Highway 9. Help is on its way.
Clear! There's a better way to jumpstart your soil back to health. Apply Endzone to protect and increase nitrogen efficiency without killing bacteria. Apply Prevent to increase phosphorus availability and reduce fixation. Better yet, use them both to get more from your fertilizer investment and see higher potential yields. Ag Explorer, your prescription for healthy soil.
Al, where are we heading for Tractor Tales this week?
John, we're heading to Grand Canyon State for this collector. It's a classic international harvester that sees as a true gem. Now, this 1947 Farmall A was a tractor Phil Franson grew up on. Memories from childhood may be a thing of the past, but this tractor helps remind him of the good old days. International Harvester built this tractor so that it could do single row cultivating. You'll notice it's offset with the wheels this way, and the driver sits there and can see right underneath the tractor. And so they called it Cultivision. It was popular for farmers who cultivated single rows at a time. I've had this for about 5-6 years. Of course, the reason I got it was because of the memories of having grown up on a farm where this was one of the tractors that they had. On the farm that I grew up on, it was called the Little A, because on the same farm there was also a John Deere A, which is a much larger tractor. And so this was the Little A, and the other one was just referred to as the John Deere, because it was the only John Deere on the farm. I bought this from another club member in the tractor club here in Arizona, and he had it painted and restored. I did have to put new tires on it, but other than that, it's pretty much the way it was when I got it. We have fun in the club competing with one another. The John Deere people feel their John Deeres are superior, and of course the Farmall people think theirs is superior. I don't care, I have both. The reason I have this tractor is because it's what I learned to drive on when I was very young, at the age of 4, 5, and 6. I spent a lot of time on a tractor like this with my father and other people on the farm. Don't forget, you can find Tractor Tales online at usfarmreport.com or on Facebook. The segments can also be downloaded as podcasts from iTunes. Today's Country Church Salute goes to the Atkinson Congregational Church located in Atkinson, Illinois. Now, this church is in a rural community with only about 1,000 residents, but it's rich in history. The church started 150 years ago in April of 1863. Back then, they didn't have a building. Instead, the members met in one of the founding members' homes. The first church building was constructed a year later, and that same foundation is where the updated church building sits today. Atkinson Congregational Church has weathered wars, the Great Depression, smallpox, and even a fire in 2011. Our thanks to Janice Smith for sharing their church with us. And as always, we want to learn about your home church as well. Salutes can be sent to the address on the screen. Stay with us, the mailbag is next.
Farmers Feeding the World is about agriculture coming together to increase both hunger solutions and food production. It's right there, between can and do. Learn more, give generously, dream huge.
Growing wheat and barley is serious business, where every acre has to produce not only a quality crop, but a return on investment. Prosaro fungicide from Bayer can help. It's proven to offer powerful activity on leaf and head diseases, improving yield under all types of conditions, thus maximizing profit. Growing with Prosaro, it's like growing money.
A man. A man and his truck, and his son who would rather play computer games than go camping. And a valley, and a river, and the stars, and a new convert. The all-new Chevy Silverado, from one generation to the next, strong for all the roads ahead.
The Chevy Silverado is the official news-gathering vehicle for U.S. Farm Report.
Time now for a weekly look inside the Farm Report mailbag. Many responded to my position on draining potholes in the northern plains. Further drainage of surface water collection points will only exacerbate groundwater shortage. It will continue the escalation of placing agricultural chemical and topsoil contamination in the fragile Gulf of Mexico at and adjacent to the mouth of the Mississippi River. That's from Grayson Osteros in Sartell, Minnesota. Grayson puts forward a strong argument, but after considerable research, I cannot find a lot of evidence of how big this factor really is. The linkage of potholes to groundwater is tenuous, and as I will speak about soon, we are discovering in Iowa we don't know what will work to address the Gulf of Mexico problem. I am not disagreeing, but I see no compelling data to suggest that potholes are really that critical factor. We also heard from a farmer who's actually dealing with this issue firsthand. These potholes aren't wetlands with standing waters and cattails growing in them. They are a low spot in the field that we farm through 95% of the time. These potholes are not a wildlife-filled haven that we are trying to ruin. They're merely a weed patch that we'd like to be able to grow something in. That's from Scott Larson, Larson Farms, Viborg, South Dakota. While I'm willing to be persuaded to another position, given all that we don't know about the environmental value of potholes, I am reluctant to override the rights of landowners for a dubious ecological benefit. As always, we want to hear from you. Send comments to mailbag@usfarmreport.com or leave us a voicemail at 800-792-4329. For Al, Tyne, and Mike, I'm John Phipps saying thank you for watching U.S. Farm Report. Be sure to join us again. We'll be working to do even better.
U.S. Farm Report is produced and distributed by Farm Journal Television.